any of you wants to record, I think a good idea is to maybe put your phones on this table, because we don't have microphones, obviously.
I'm gonna shut this for better sound.
Yes, we'll try to survive for 30 minutes over here together. So welcome to this press briefing with our guest artist, Sienkiewicz, for the first time in Poland.
Get together again for the first time.
Yes. And Sean Gordon-Markey, who's also for the first time. So the way this is going to work, I would like each of you to ask one question, either to Bill or to Sean, or to both of them, and we'll go maybe one by one, or at least try to do so. Let's try to not ask the same questions. So we're hoping that you're going to have a good material from this conversation.
Can I ask the first question?
Of course, Sean.
Tell me about your cowboy boots.
What?
Oh.
Well, so you're the Polish guy in America.
Right.
Do you want to tell that story?
Oh, how that came about? Oh, that's the brief story is that I worked on Clint Eastwood was one of my all-time cinematic heroes. I loved him forever, and I was represented by the same artist as the same rep who represented Robert Peake, who did Apocalypse Now and other movie posters, and I started to want to get into movie posters around the time that Image comics were sort of becoming really big in the U.S. And I realized my style was not in that vein, so I decided to try outside of that. And so the agency that worked with Clint Eastwood was working on Unforgiven, so they approached me to work on the rough. So I came up with 7 paintings, the one of which was the one that ended up being done as a poster. But there were other illustrators that were also involved in terms of putting their hat into the ring. Jim Sharp, who was one of my heroes when I was growing up. I think even David Grove, other people. And when it came down to deciding who was going to do it, the art director went to Clint and said, you know, who should we give the project to? And Eastwood said, give it to the Polish guy. And when I heard that, especially after, you know, watching Dirty Harry, you know, where he's just completely sort of very clear in terms of his political positions and in terms of his bigotry. I smiled. I said, I don't care if I don't get this job or not. One of the highlights of my life is actually, you know, being insulted by Dirty Harry. And
then he gave you cowboy boots?
Well, the cowboy boots came from the fact that I was a Beatles fan growing up. George Harrison was my favorite Beatle, and also I grew up on a farm, so everybody wore cowboy boots around the farm animals. And then I realized that you know, I had the kind that went up to here and everything else, but I fell in love with the short boots, and then for some reason I just thought this was a color that you don't see a lot. So I said it was a purely aesthetic choice. Yeah, thank you. So.
Okay.
Question to Mr. Sienkiewicz. You are creating a beautiful series of tribute portraits in the memory of people who are sadly no longer with us. And I was wondering how exactly challenging is the process of when you are creating such a piece, where you have to choose how to portray such person and what kind of emotions you have with that, especially when you are portraying someone that you knew well.
Well, I think when I first started doing the portraits, I forget who it was that sort of started it off. It might have been someone like I'm blanking on her name, the blues jazz singer who passed away from a drug overdose. And
Billie Holiday?
No, much younger. She did a bit with she had a concert with Tony Bennett and
Amy Winehouse.
Amy Winehouse. Yeah, I think I did her because I loved her music, and I realized that when I was starting to do them, I did them because different people, like musicians and actors that had influenced me and had made an impression on me, when they passed away, I sort of felt like I had nothing really more to offer except to say I'm sorry. It's like, and that this person meant to me. So visually, because art has always been my way, and I'm assuming that in some respects it's like that with you. It's like a manner of just simply, this is how I process information visually, and it's like, and so emotionally, that was what I was trying to put to the work. So like when Glenn Campbell, who is an amazing guitarist, he was more known for country western, but played on all of like music from Elvis Presley to Frank Sinatra, for the Wrecking Crew, which was the name of all the studio musicians in the 60s. When he was a big influence on me in terms of musicality and virtuosity. So when he passed, I realized how much he had meant to me. And when I did the portrait, I thought of like a golden, sort of the golden boy, you know, which I was probably going to revisit, because I've got a piece I've just started on Robert Redford, who sort of has that same kind of aura. And so one of the things I tried to do was take the person's passing, how they affected me emotionally, and what would, you know, and it was a way to do a piece very quickly, because I felt like I was on it. I gave myself 2 hours per portrait, and some were just basic straight likenesses. Other ones I felt like I could go into a little bit more and leave certain things out, and it became an emotionally resonant piece for me, because I felt like I have nothing else to offer but this drawing. And it's like, and I felt like it was such a meager attempt at giving some kind of, to try to capture what this person meant to me. But I at some point I'd even thought about stopping them, but other people told me that seeing those pieces meant something to them. So I realized that in a way it became kind of a collective grieving. And so it started to feel a little bit like a, like not exactly an obligation, but something that I wanted to continue to do. And I've got at least 50 of them that are halfway done that I just had to move on. And the only one that really was the toughest one to do was for our friend, the great Tim Sale, who passed away, and which was the most awkward, difficult one. Not only because I loved Tim; he was an amazing artist, an amazing person, but the fact that he actually wanted for me to do the piece before he passed, so he could actually see it. And one of his friends reached out, and it's ridiculous to say that, you know, that there's pressure in those kinds of situations, because you know, at the end of the day, it's like he's passed, my friend is passing away, and it's like, and my artistic ego is in here kind of going like, well, what if the piece, like, it doesn't look like him, or what if he doesn't like it? It's like, there's the weirdest kind of combinations of mental gymnastics that I was doing when I was doing it. I just shut all that out, try to capture what you feel about him, and you know, and let it go. And so I found out in a way that it meant, they started to mean a lot to me as well. So I mean, I'm still going to be doing more, but they're fewer and farther between now.
A question for Sean now.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have. I'm happy to listen.
If you want to I'll answer your questions too.
Okay, so one of your most famous books, Batman White Knight, has sort of special motive where you reverse the role of a villain and hero. So do you believe that there's any other character in Marvel or DC that would fit also this motive, and if so, which one?
So with White Knight, Batman, they flip the role of villain and hero. Is there a Marvel character that?
Marvel or DC character, like.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, Punisher already is
Yeah.
good, bad, mostly bad, depending on politics. And they're bringing him back to be a traditional Punisher now, which is interesting. That's a good question. I wish I had longer to answer it. I think that when I did White Knight, it wasn't necessarily, I like Batman a lot. The animated series as a kid was my Bible. And I never really liked the Joker. And I thought, man, if he could just stop being crazy, get his shit together, he could probably take down Batman legally. Just tell Gotham, hey, who likes waiting in traffic because Batman destroyed a bridge?
Yeah.
Imagine if you're living in Gotham, you're like, fucking bridge is out again? Are you kidding me? Like, is it worth having this vigilante asshole out there? I don't think it would be that hard to turn people on Batman using social media. What's Batman gonna do? Like tweet back? You know, like fuck you, Joker. So I thought there was wide open to do like a criticism of Batman, but also, you know, I love the character. Of course, it's an homage to him too. So it punches on Batman a lot, but it embraces him at the same time. I have ideas for a Wolverine story. You know, any grizzled male who doesn't shave, disturbed, like that's my bread and butter. I'm not good at the voluptuous girls as much. You can draw everything. Is there like a go-to type of character for you?
Well, it's interesting. I found that and this is probably maybe due to the era that I grew up in. I mean, where there was the whole school of, say, the Image guys. I mean, like I look at like Jim Lee or Rob Liefeld's Females, where it's like they've got these impossibly large, you know, breasts and hips with these wasp waists, and I remember when I would first start doing convention sketches, I had, you know, young kids coming up to me, they wanted me to draw Supergirl like holding open her flight suit, and it was like there was this like sort of the Richard Corbin heavy metal level of voluptuous, you know, sort of Kitten Navidad or something out of Faster Pussycat Kill Kill, you know, and I just remember when I started doing Elektra, I just decided that I would try to give her more of an athletic sort of swimmer's body, and which angered so many guys. It was like, and I felt like. It's like, not that we try to do anything subversive, but we try to find different ways of doing something. And I realized it was such an insult to a lot of the, like, you know, the quote fans. But I think for me what makes it interesting is finding a character and then seeing how far I can push it, like with the Kingpin. Because I mean, I loved Romita's version, but at the time I was very heavily into Tex Avery and you know, the whole Ollie Johnson and Frank, the guys, the two older guys from Disney who really did the squash and stretch. And I just thought, what about illustrating characters about, rather than how they look, interpreting them in terms of jazz and how something feels. So which I think is sort of what I find, like you're doing that with what you do. There's a level of, obviously you want to be able to draw well enough to have something look like what it does, but beneath that there's a subconscious, like a subtext that goes on. Like when I see your work, it's like there's what's on the page and then there's what's underneath the page, you know?
Right, yeah. That's interesting.
That
I think a lot of only other artists can read that sometimes. Although readers must pick up on it.
I think that they do. I don't know if they can put it into words, but I do know that when I emotionally invested myself in artwork or certain panels, that it may not have been a big fight scene. It may have been just simply an emotional bit between two characters. You know, certainly with Moon Knight, I found that when I was doing Marlene and Stephen, you know, or Mark Spector having conversations, that the emotional arguments that they would have felt like people tended to respond to that almost like it was a soap opera, and it just happened to have punching and kicking in it. You know?
Okay, another question, maybe for Bill this time.
I have to Mr. Sienkiewicz and Mr. Murphy both one question. What is harder, starting a piece or finishing it? When you take a project?
Once, starting a piece or finishing it. I find that, I was going to say that sometimes it's both, but the main thing I've learned is that, and I would have thought by now I would have gotten all of my internal monologues out of the way, because I mean I went through so many periods of thinking that I didn't know what I was doing, and now it's like after doing it for so many years, there are still times I look and go and I begin to start something and think, I used to know what I was doing. It's like it was so much simpler. I'll find myself looking through older stuff that I've done, And I realize that the process is an ongoing one for me, is that I'm viewing everything from a new point of view, and what do I want to say with this? And it may sound a little sort of new agey, but I also feel that the work dictates to me what it wants to be. Anytime I've tried to assert my will on a piece, like it's usually when I get my rear end handed to me, you know. And so if I can just get the first line down and just dive into it and start getting right into making a mess and then fixing something. It's when I go in with any kind of expectation. So one of the things I've learned to do, or tried to do, is to not have expectations. Because I remember when I was a kid in grammar school, I think any kids, when they're in the middle of drawing a landscape or whatever, they're not thinking about the result. They're just like, oh, look, there's the sun up in the corner, or there's the, you know, and they're just doing it. They're just in the middle of doing it. And when I can just simply do it, and just run with it and let things sort of speak to me, then I feel like the likelihood that it'll be a piece I'm happy with. The toughest part is knowing when to finish it, because I've done many pieces where it's like, oh, I was done a half an hour ago. And if I'm working by literally painting on a watercolor piece of paper or illustration board or whatever, and I don't have Command Z, you know, like the undo button, and it's like, okay, I didn't save this iteration, you know, and that's when, but that's another live and learn. It's like, in some respects, there are big steps, and then there's so much of it is incrementalism, you know.
Thank you.
That's I think it's easier for me to start a character, because if you do this professionally from 9 to 5, 6 days a week, you sit down and your muscle and brain just takes over. It becomes automatic. And you do the sketch, it's infinite possibilities. So I'll have a sketch of a cover on Friday. I finish the sketch, like, oh my goodness, that's gonna be amazing. It's just this big now, but I can see in my head how Batman's gonna look fantastic, and So I'm happy on Saturday and Sunday. I'm like, this is gonna be great. This is gonna be great. And then I draw it on Monday, and like, oh, that's not quite what I wanted. Where did I go wrong? It's mostly I'm happy when I finish a piece, but if I draw something I don't love on Friday, it's bugging me all weekend. And I look at this sketch, because I'm like, what happened? What went wrong? Was it the lighting? Was it the face? Was it some rendering? Like, I had it here, and somewhere along the way I lost it. I think when you work loose, like you and I do, you leave you're leaving a lot of the mark making up to chance in a way.
Right.
Like Jim Lee, who I love his art, he draws the same kind of action figure in his brain over and over. I don't know if he ever gets worried drawing anymore, but you approach everything differently. Like,
yeah,
for you, it's like, can I do it again today? Can I be a magician again?
Well, also, I find that, like, at a certain point, there are certain things that have become very easy, and, you know, like, you do it enough times, and it's like trying to find something that makes it intriguing. And I find that, one, I'm more intrigued now by what can I leave out,
oh, yeah.
and also I will try to ascribe a level of, like, that there's a level of not only intelligence on the part of the reader, but involvement and an investment. And so to me, presenting a piece of art to a reader, it's almost like they're doing half the work, and it becomes a dialogue between what I'm putting down and what they're bringing to it. And to me, that's the most beautiful aspect of it, is that it becomes a communal experience. You know, and I think when you mention about the you know, having something be rougher, is it textural? Is it where did something, quote, go off the rails? It may be, and again, it may be subjective. For me, I've gone off the rails, and then I'll look at this piece an hour later,
yeah.
And it's like, oh, somehow it's like it managed to make it back on the track.
Sometimes you show up at work on Monday, and I'm like, oh, it's not as bad as I thought.
Right.
Okay, I was just
Yeah.
But sometimes it's like, nah, it's worse than what I thought.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, next question.
Sean, can you tell us something about future of White Knight series or your plans?
Sure. White Knight has been 3 volumes so far. My wife also wrote Harley Quinn White Knight. I was only supposed to do one, but the sales were so good that they had me keep going. Now I'm stuck forever. So for volume 4 now, it's going to feature Superman. And Superman is only 20, and Bruce is 665 now. And there's no such thing as a superhero in my universe yet. So the FBI has Bruce. Like, what is this kid in Kansas? Is he an alien? What do we do? So Bruce investigates Clark, thinks of him as a threat, and fights him, but then he sucks his powers away using the Fortress of Solitude. And when he does that, he accidentally opens up a Stargate, I don't know if this makes sense, to another world, and Bruce realizes, oh, there's people coming this way called Kryptonians, and they're really pissed off. And I just neutralized this kid who was my only chance at fighting. So they, for part 2, they have to work together to go through the Stargate to get Clark's powers back. And the science team that's guiding them is all, it's like, they will be blasted with the powers of the 6 Kryptonian gods, and they will become Wonder Woman, Flash. It's sort of my way to create a Justice League in a very new way, very fast way, and sort of just try something new with with my universe. I've always loved when Superman and Batman team up, but I've never seen it where Superman is a kid and Bruce is like a grandfather, and how that dynamic would work. You know, I imagine Bruce is resentful of Superman because he didn't earn his fighting ability. You know, Bruce's passion is dialing it up to 11 and being as best as he can. And Clark's power is dialing it down so it doesn't hurt anybody. And I just think that dynamic is really fascinating. And in this book coming up, in a way, Bruce is dealing with another Robin, but this Robin is a nuclear bomb that could go off. So it's, yeah, I'm really looking forward to exploring these things. So I will be starting this project January or February. And this will take me a year. And then halfway in between that, I'm going to have a 48-pager that's going to be about Catwoman, White Knight. And it'll talk about Catwoman and the 9 lives of her love Bruce, the times they didn't connect, times they fought, you know, whatever. And I also want it to be all splash pages, which I haven't really seen done since, I guess, Thor.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Shit, sorry.
Yeah, no, I know, yeah, but that's...
I almost said Bill Sienkiewicz, but that's you.
Yeah, right, yeah. Well, I mean, for me, I remember doing a Hulk story on the Century with Paul Jenkins, and I said I only wanted to do 2 panels a page.
That's cool.
You know, and it was because sometimes, I mean, but I had a question for you regarding, you know, with the White Knight. When did you think of that, and how did you approach, you know, not to give away too much about the mechanisms and political in terms of how things are brought to the publishers or
I'll be honest. I was ready to quit DC. I really love what I've done there. I worked with Scott Snyder, but I really wanted to write my own stuff, and I just felt like I couldn't do monthly kinds of comics anymore. So I said, can I do my own Batman? And they said, well, you're more an artist. We really like you to work with Scott because Scott's a real writer and make money. So I said, thank you, but I'm gonna leave. You know, and they said, whoa, what do you need? So I go, all right, I need this page rate, I need that, I need a $100,000 signing bonus. Like, I got really aggressive, and I said, I want to do my own Batman. They're like, okay, we'll give you most of that, but you have to agree to work with Scott after. So I go, great. So Scott was taking too long, so I start my book, and my book sells very well very quickly. So I get a call from Scott, hey man, you know, I'm really happy for you and everything, but you know, it's probably just a fluke, don't get excited, like you and I are still working together, right? I'm like, oh yeah, no problem.
My pal, yeah.
Issue 2, yeah, I know your numbers are still high, Sean, but we're still working together, right? I'm like, oh yeah, man, I promised I would, blah, blah, blah. So by issue 3, the sales, usually comic sales go like down, but issue 3 went up. So I get a call from DC, and they're like, do you want to do a sequel to your weirdo Batman book? And I said, yeah, but I don't want Scott to yell at me, so can you deal with Scott? Because he's going to be pissed. And Scott and I are friends, and I've told this story to him. And yeah, they told Scott that I retired from working with writers, which made Scott very unhappy.
But you can always tell the people that you get, the pros that you get along really well with, because they're the ones who will give you the most shit.
Yeah.
If they stop talking if they stop talking to you, whatever, or if they start being really nice to you,
Right.
then you're in trouble.
I've had, creatives are weird. Like I've had Rick Remender is a friend of mine on Tokyo Ghost. He's blocked me on social media, blocked me in text, and unblocked me, and he gets mad that I'm wasting my time on Batman. I need to do more punk rock. So I can't tell where I'm at with him, and it's his mental problems.
I've
not me.
had, yeah,
There are people
we're
like
not gonna,
that.
I'm not going to give away any sort of naming any names, but I've had that experience as well.
Yeah.
I will say one is that, and I talked about this with Howard Chaykin. I mean, when I had my studio in New York City with Dennis Cowan and Michael Davis, Howard Chaykin and I would butt heads. I mean, all the time. And now it's like we have lunch together. We're like brothers and get along great. It's like there are things that I'm assuming that either, I've matured, but the jury's out on that one.
Yeah.
But the idea of a lot of things that meant a lot when I was a lot younger in terms of fighting for space. It's like I ended up having more love and affection and respect for artists that when I was growing up I didn't really look at as like top of the, they were just the journeyman, and I found that anybody who can do this calling for a living is deserves all the respect in the world. So anybody who's doing some interesting stuff, I'm glad that they're out there sort of pushing the medium, because my love for the medium is that it can do anything, and anybody, I resent and I disagree with people who sort of like they get into a position of either being well renowned or authority or whatever, and then once they do, they become the gatekeepers, and I don't ascribe to that at all. I sort of
gatekeepers.
Yeah, it's sort of like I've made it. It's like, and now I'm going to shut the door, pull up the ladder, and it's like, and that's not how you do comics. This is how you do comics, and it's like no, it's a big tent. It's a really big tent. So,
let's talk about elephant in the room. After the cancellation of Red Hood, is creating comics more challenged than ever before?
Is our creating comics more of a challenge? Well, I think it really depends on what. Certainly, from my point of view, it's like it really depends on what audience you're trying to reach. Mm-hmm. Because I know certainly with like when I wanted to do my own writing, I wanted to tell my own stories the way I did when I was younger, because I drew comics. But I realized that my ability to tell stories, I can't do a monthly series. I get so immersed in. I did such a deep dive when I did Straight Toasters that it became obsessive. I actually stopped going home. I started living in my studio, and it became pretty gruesome in terms of like lack of sunlight and everything else. And I realized that doing something that feels much more personal, where I'm walking on a tightrope that sort of vanishes beneath my feet as I'm feeling excited and exhilarated and very much anxious, because this is something of my own and it doesn't have the comfort of having a Batman or a Superman or something that's out in the public domain that people know. But at the same time, doing work for the main companies where you have IP, it's like that's the most. They have the most control over that. They don't want anything that's going to diminish the quality. But I think that I've seen pieces and comic strips on social media for all manner of creative outlets. I mean, there's one person I know, Jen Bateman, who does a book on their transition in terms of in terms of to them there. It's like them there as opposed to from her. It's like there's a whole big anti-woke thing happening now, but they write about their struggle with autism, and to me it's like and it's personalized, and I've read it, and I thought it's some of the most brilliant use of the medium to explain, to connect. And it doesn't have to be like about, like I said, punching people out or cops and robbers or romance or anything else. It's a vehicle for exploring connections. And at the same time, I can read, any number of titles that are superhero related and enjoy it for what it is. So I think it's, in some respects, it's more difficult because the money is, it's there, but it's also, the companies are struggling in some respects. And I think other people are doing it not for the money, but for the love of storytelling. So I wish I actually had a really good answer for you, but I don't. I don't know if you feel it.
Yeah, I'll take the bait. I used to say things on. I'm very. I did punk rock Jesus, atheist. I had a lot of crazy things to punch back, against Republicans, Christians, whatever. I'm older now. I do have friends on both sides. I love everybody. I really want to get along with everybody. I think if you're not online, people generally don't come after you. If you say stupid things online for years, it's going to catch up to you. I mean, I've said dumb things online I wish I could take back. I'm sure you have too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel bad for kids in their 20s who don't know how to use social media, who are laying out a history of them saying dumb things. We all said dumb things in our 20s. If you say something dumb, I don't know that writer specifically what he or she or they said. But
recently?
Yeah.
Yeah.
DC is in the business of selling comics and making money. They're not in the business of politics. You can write books about politics. You have to be smart about it. Like, I wrote a book called Von Freeze, which is an offshoot of White Knight. It's basically about Donald Trump. I said all the stuff I wanted to say in there, but I didn't bash people over the head with it. I didn't have conservatives coming after me. Like, you can say what you want. You got to be smart. You got to be clever. And people that are getting canceled and caught, either they're doing dumb shit, saying stuff that, like, condoning violence and stuff that's not going to age well, or sometimes their talent is they're not good at filtering it in a healthy way. The problem with creatives is we're alone in a room and we go crazy. Like it's a documentary called Blackfish about killer whales in isolation. So I go from talking to 0 people every day to talking to 1,000 people all of a sudden. Like, wow, I'm probably going to say dumb shit and say weird things. It took me a while before I was media trained enough to know how to step over the laser beams and things like that. I appreciate your question, and I like talking about stuff like this. My answer would be, I'm careful with what I write. I don't want to lose what I have. I don't want to. I've got 30 people who look to me that I'm hiring, and if I say something stupid, I'm the boss. I pay them. I have to be smart.
Well, yeah, and I totally agree with you, man. There are plenty of times that when I did Brought to Light, and Shadow Play with Alan Moore, the same kinds of things in terms of the political divide back then was not nearly as extreme as it is now.
Fair, yeah.
But I also find that there were plenty of things that I did, in my youth, back, thank goodness, when there wasn't, any cameras or anything else. I mean, things I look at now that I consider benign, or at the time I considered benign, but I look now and I go that, like I don't know what the drinking age and driving, like back when I was a teenager, drinking and driving was sort of something you just did. And now I look at that now and I'm embarrassed and sort of very grateful. I mean, there were times I woke up and I found bark under my hubcaps, my car, because it was like I was missing trees, and so there's things that you do when you're younger that are sort of, if you can survive them and learn from them, and at the same time, I feel that I worked very hard for my love and respect for the medium and for the art form, that in a weird way, that's like kind of a responsibility that I take, and an obligation I take very seriously. So I think that with a certain group that's coming up, especially if it's a group or multiple groups that have not had a voice or have felt silenced, I think that there's a need or desire on their part to say, okay, now that I've gotten a position of writing a situation, I'm going to draw attention to this injustice that's been done, and I'm going to use the bully pulpit to be able to put all of this out there, and it becomes a huge baseball bat or a heavy mallet that stops being necessarily about telling an interesting story and becomes about the message, and I think that in a way it can do great disservice to the audience, where like if you're doing with a level of subtlety and a level of humor and talent, where you can actually thread that needle. That to me, that's a gift, you know, and to be able to do that, like what you were doing, you know, and I think that you're going to see more of that, and it's unfortunate because you know, you see people who really try to do interesting stories and make their positions known, but at the same time they may end up destroying everything that they wanted to build, and that's unfortunate. But that's also part of the life lesson, you know. You know, I just wish those people well, you know.
We have time for one more question.
Can I have a question to Mr. Sienkiewicz?
Yes.
I wanted to ask you, you have often said that people often have problem with pronouncing your surname. How do you feel coming first time to the country of your ancestors and walking in the streets and seeing Sienkiewicz Street, Sienkiewicz Park, and people who actually know how to pronounce your name?
I'm personally inviting you all back to San Diego with me. Stand in front of my, you know, I have to be careful because I don't want this to become an indictment against my fellow Americans.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, yeah. But I think I remember growing up, and I've heard every iteration of it, like even in my own family. Like I realized when I was in art school, certainly like I won't even talk about grammar school, where I would have, you know, people would do a drawing of like a sinking witch. It's like sink a witch,
Wow.
or skunk cabbage, stink a bitch. Some of the best one. There's an actor friend of mine who wrote to me, and he said that his Siri said that it came across as my name read out as built-in cabinets. Which and Dave McKean's mom said that Bill St. Kevin called. So it's like some of them are just priceless. Other ones are just like I've actually got to one point where I decided to do the phonetic spelling, you know, and I have people who look. They'll say, "How do you pronounce?" People say, "I have a question," and invariably my first response would be Sienkiewicz, and they go, "How did you know?" But I would point to the pronunciation, and they'd look at it and go like, and I don't know what it is about some of the Americans, but because they view things in terms of categories, that if you're Polish, your name has to end in ski, even though it's like W-I-C-Z. So it's Bill Sienkiewicz. You know, it's like they'll add, and it's just here. I'm sure you have to go through none of that, you know, but it's pretty intriguing to sort of deal with.
I still don't know how to spell it. If I'm texting my friends about a new piece that he's done, I'm like, oh, I love it. There's so many bills. I try to spell Sienkiewicz. I always have to look it up so I don't look like an idiot. The E and the I are reversed, and I don't speak Slav at all.
Oh well, yeah. Well, I do know that I know when I was in art school that I started to work professionally, I would try to find ways to write my name. Like when I learned cursive, remember cursive? You know, in grammar school. And having such a long last name, because my best friend in grammar school had a three-letter last name, A-U-N, on, and I remember writing, and I would get S, I, E, and K off fucking. It was like it just became this line, and I was exhausted, but I thought about shortening it when I started professionally, but I realized that when my grandparents came over in 1912, it's like they had given up everything. So in a way, I'm American, not because of my parents, but because of my grandparents who left here and started a life in you know, and working as a coal miner. So the fact that I had such a lovely relationship with my grandparents, and that I felt like I owed them a great deal of respect and gratitude, and that I was not, that I wanted to be very, and I am very proud of you know, my heritage. And so I remember I went to him, I said, how do you pronounce it? I wanted to make sure that it's correct. Because even in my own family, my sister would pronounce it Sienkiewicz, you know, because it became like this Americanized thing. So for me, it's it's just one of those things it's been so much a part of my life. It's like, at one point I was writing down every version I heard. It was like, you know, so I had like a checklist. It felt like some odd just game I was playing. But in the annals of sort of things to really complain about, that's not one. Especially when you have Clint Eastwood insulting you. You know?
Fantastic. Thank you so much for coming.